The smell of charcoal and grilled meat hung thick in the summer air as I approached the sprawling lawn of Harrison Industries. I could hear the laughter before I saw the crowd, that familiar grating sound of corporate bonding masquerading as genuine friendship. My hand instinctively went to my stomach, checking the athletic fabric of my fitted workout gear. Then I stopped myself. Old habits died hard. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Ready for this? Marcus asked from beside me, his professional smile already in place. At 6'3" with the kind of physique that came from a lifetime of dedication to fitness, Marcus commanded attention everywhere he went. Today, that was exactly what I needed. More than ready, I replied, adjusting the designer sunglasses that had cost more than my ex-husband's monthly car payment. Let's go meet the team. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being part of this incredible journey. If you're enjoying these stories of empowerment, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps us build this amazing community. Let's dive in. The corporate BBQ was in full swing by the time we arrived fashionably late. Harrison Industries threw these quarterly events with the kind of forced enthusiasm that only HR departments could muster. I'd attended 3 of them during my marriage to Derek, each one a carefully orchestrated performance where I played the role of the supportive corporate wife, smiling through discussions about quarterly earnings and golf handicaps. That was 2 years ago. 2 years before Derek announced to our marriage counselor that he was done, that he'd found someone who inspired him, someone who took care of herself. 2 years before I discovered that his inspirational new love interest was a 26-year-old marketing associate named Brittany who worked in his department. I scanned the crowd as we walked across the manicured lawn. The usual suspects were all there. The middle managers with their polo shirts tucked into khaki shorts, the executives in their expensive casual wear that screamed, "I make 6 figures but want to look relatable," and the spouses dutifully manning the salad table. "There," I murmured to Marcus, spotting Derek near the grill, surrounded by his usual entourage. He'd put on weight since our divorce, I noticed. The trim marathon runner I'd married had been replaced by a man whose shirt buttons strained slightly across his midsection. Brittany stood beside him in a sundress that probably cost her an entire paycheck, her hand possessively on his arm. "Target acquired," Marcus said with a slight smile. "Want to make an entrance or observe first?" "Let's observe. I want to hear what he's saying." We drifted closer, using the crowd as cover. Marcus grabbed 2 bottles of sparkling water from a cooler, handing me one as we positioned ourselves near enough to hear, but far enough to seem casual. "Can't believe she had the nerve to ask for alimony," Derek was saying, his voice carrying that particular tone of aggrieved righteousness that I knew so well. "Like she contributed anything to the marriage. Woman spent half her time on the couch watching Netflix." My jaw clenched. The couch time he was referring to was the 3 months I'd spent recovering from a car accident that had left me with 2 fractured vertebrae and a shattered pelvis. 3 months when I couldn't walk without assistance, when every breath felt like fire, when the very act of existing required more strength than I'd known I possessed. "You're too generous, man," one of his colleagues said, slapping him on the back. "Should have fought the alimony harder." "Trust me, I tried," Derek replied, taking a long pull from his beer. "But her lawyer was a shark. Probably slept with him to get him to take the case." The water bottle crumpled slightly in my grip. Marcus placed a steadying hand on my arm, barely perceptible. "Easy," he murmured. "Let him dig deeper." The further he goes, the better this gets." He was right. I forced myself to breathe, to channel the anger into cold, calculated focus. This was exactly why I'd planned this so carefully. "At least you upgraded," another voice chimed in. Robert from accounting, I recognized. "Brittany here is what? A size 2? "0, actually," Brittany said with a giggle that made my teeth ache. "I work really hard to maintain my figure." "Unlike some people," Derek added, and the group laughed. "You know what got me? The entitlement." She'd gained like 40 pounds, stopped dressing up, stopped trying, but somehow I was supposed to still be attracted to that? I'm successful, I work hard, I deserve someone who matches my energy. 40 pounds. He was rounding up. I'd gained 28 pounds during our marriage, 15 during my recovery, the rest from the depression that followed when I realized my husband saw my broken body as a personal inconvenience rather than a tragedy to help me through. "Preach, brother," someone else added. "My ex tried the same thing. Let herself go completely, then wondered why I wasn't interested anymore." "It's the laziness that really gets me," Derek continued, warming to his subject now. The beer was clearly loosening his tongue, or maybe he'd just been emboldened by the divorce being final. Like, I'd come home from a 12-hour day at the office, and she'd be in pajamas, no makeup, hair a mess. I'd try to be supportive, suggest maybe a gym membership, meal plans, but she'd get defensive, act like I was being unreasonable. The gym membership he'd suggested was 2 weeks after I'd been cleared to walk without a cane. The meal plans had come with comments about how I needed to get back to fighting weight if I wanted to keep him interested. The supportiveness he mentioned had manifested as him comparing me to fitter women, as him accidentally leaving fitness magazines on my nightstand open to transformation stories. "How'd you finally pull the trigger?" Robert asked. Derek shrugged, his arm sliding around Brittany's waist. "Met this one. Reminded me what it was like to be with a woman who actually cared about her appearance, who wanted to look good for her man. Made me realize I didn't have to settle." "Best decision you ever made," Brittany cooed, reaching up to kiss his cheek. "Damn straight," Derek agreed. "Though I'll be paying for it for a while. Judge gave her way too much in the settlement. But hey, you can't put a price on freedom, right?" The settlement he was complaining about was 3 years of alimony, barely enough to cover rent and basic expenses while I completed my physical therapy and figured out my next steps. The house had been his before we married, so I'd left with my personal belongings and little else. The judge had been sympathetic to my situation, but bound by California's laws regarding short-term marriages and separate property. "Amen to that," one of the other men said, raising his beer bottle. "To Derek's freedom and to women who actually take care of themselves." They clinked bottles and drank. The casual cruelty of it was almost impressive. This wasn't a private conversation in a bar. This was a company event, surrounded by colleagues and subordinates, with HR literally 50 feet away serving potato salad. "Seen enough?" Marcus asked quietly. "Almost," I replied. I wanted the perfect moment, the ideal entry point. As if reading my mind, the universe delivered. "You know what the crazy thing is?" Derek continued, his voice getting slightly louder as he worked through what was clearly not his first beer of the afternoon. "She'll probably just get fat and lazy all over again. That's what women like her do. They trap you when they're young and attractive. Then once they have the ring, they let themselves go. It's like false advertising." "Derek," Brittany said with mock concern, though her smile suggested she was enjoying this. "That's so mean." "It's honest," he countered. Someone needs to say it. I spent 8 years watching her deteriorate. 8 years trying to motivate her, encourage her, be the good husband. And for what? So she could take me to the cleaners in divorce court? 8 years. He made it sound like a prison sentence. Those 8 years had included our wedding day, when he'd promised to love me in sickness and health. They'd included the night I got the call that my mother had died, when he'd held me while I sobbed. They'd included the morning after my accident, when he'd sat in the hospital room and held my hand while the doctor explained that I might never walk normally again. Those moments had been real. I had to believe that. But somewhere along the way, the man I'd married had been replaced by this one. The one who measured my worth in pounds and dress sizes, who saw my struggle to recover as a personal failing rather than a testament to human resilience. "Time?" Marcus asked. "Time," I confirmed. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. We started walking toward the group, and I could feel the shift in my body language. The slouch of the wounded ex-wife was gone, replaced by the posture I'd worked so hard to regain, shoulders back, core engaged, head high. Every step was deliberate, confident. Marcus and I moved through the crowd like we belonged there, which technically we did. The invitation I'd received had been addressed to Derek Harrison and guest, a clerical error since his assistant hadn't updated the mailing list. But that error had given me the perfect entry point. We were about 10 feet away when Derek noticed us. I watched in real time as his expression shifted from animated storytelling to confusion to something that might have been concern. His group followed his gaze, their conversation dying mid-sentence. "Hey, everyone," I said brightly, my voice carrying just enough to catch the attention of nearby groups. "Sorry we're late. Traffic from the gym was brutal." The silence that fell over Derek's circle was magnificent. I could see him processing, trying to reconcile the woman standing before him with whatever image he'd been carrying in his head, because I wasn't the same person he'd divorced. The weight I'd gained was long gone, replaced by lean muscle earned through 18 months of brutal physical therapy, followed by another 6 months of dedicated training. My body was stronger now than it had ever been. Not thin in the way Brittany was thin, all delicate bones and carefully managed portions, but powerful, athletic. The kind of strong that came from deadlifting twice your body weight and running a mile in under 7 minutes. My hair, which he'd complained about being always a mess, was pulled back in a sleek high ponytail that showed off the diamond earrings I'd bought myself for my 35th birthday. The athletic wear I'd chosen was designer, expensive enough to make a statement but practical enough for actual movement, and my skin, which he'd complained looked tired without makeup, was glowing with health and the kind of confidence that no amount of concealer could fake. "Nat?" Derek's voice cracked slightly on my name. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited," I said smoothly, gesturing to Marcus. "This is Marcus Chen, my personal trainer. Marcus, this is my ex-husband Derek and his friends." Marcus smiled, extending his hand toward Derek. "Nice to meet you. Natalie's told me so much about you." The handshake was perfect, firm enough to be impressive, just long enough to make Derek work for it. Marcus topped Derek by a good 4 inches and probably 40 pounds of muscle. The contrast was not lost on anyone present. "Your trainer?" Brittany's voice was sharp, confused. She was looking between Marcus and me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "That's right. Marcus confirmed, his arm casually brushing against mine in a gesture that could have been accidental, but very much wasn't. We've been working together for about 10 months now. Nat's one of my most dedicated clients. I didn't know you were working out, Derek stammered. He couldn't seem to stop staring at me, and I could practically see the calculations happening behind his eyes. There's a lot you don't know about me anymore, I said pleasantly. We've been divorced for 2 years, Derek. People change. You look... He trailed off, seemingly unable to find the words. Different? I supplied helpfully. That's what happens when you commit to your health. Speaking of which, Marcus and I just finished teaching a class downtown. High-intensity interval training. Absolutely brutal, but so worth it. You teach, Robert from accounting blurted out. Assistant teach, I clarified. I'm working toward my certification. Should have it by next quarter. This was all true, though I'd left out the part about how I'd started training as physical therapy, how every morning for the first 6 months I'd woken up in pain, how there had been days when I'd cried in the gym bathroom because my body wouldn't do what I told it to. They didn't need to know about the struggle. They only needed to see the results. That's great, Derek managed. Good for you. Thank you, I said, my smile sharp enough to cut. Though I have to say, I'm a little surprised to hear you care about my health now. If I remember correctly, you weren't quite so supportive during our marriage. The group shifted uncomfortably. Brittany's hand tightened on Derek's arm. That's not fair, Derek said, his voice taking on a defensive edge. I tried to help you. You just didn't want to listen. Help? I repeated, tilting my head. Is that what you called it? Funny, I remember it differently. I remember being 3 months post-accident, barely able to walk, and you suggesting that maybe I should try harder to lose weight. You're twisting things, Derek said, but his face was flushing. Am I? I asked. Or am I just remembering what you apparently forgot? That I spent months in physical therapy learning to walk again? That the weight you were so concerned about was the result of literally not being able to move? I think we should change the subject, Brittany interjected, her voice tight. Actually, I think this is a great subject, I countered. See, I was just standing over there getting water, and I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Something about women who let themselves go? About how I got fat and lazy? Derek's face went from flushed to pale. You were listening? Hard not to, Marcus chimed in, his voice mild but his eyes hard. You were speaking pretty loudly. I'd say at least 20 people heard you. I glanced around, noticing for the first time that we'd attracted a significant audience. People from nearby groups had drifted closer, their conversations forgotten in favor of the drama unfolding before them. This is inappropriate, Derek said, trying to regain control of the situation. This is a company event. You're absolutely right, I interrupted. It is a company event, which makes me wonder why you thought it was appropriate to stand here and mock your disabled ex-wife in front of your colleagues. That seems like a pretty significant lapse in judgment, wouldn't you say? You weren't disabled, Derek shot back. You were injured. There's a difference. Is there? I asked. Because I remember having to use a walker. I remember not being able to dress myself without help. I remember my doctor using the word permanently when discussing my prognosis. That sounds pretty disabled to me. This is ancient history, Brittany said, stepping forward. Derek made his choice. He chose someone who actually makes an effort. I turned my attention to her, and something in my expression made her step back. You're right, I said softly. He did make his choice. He chose to abandon his wife when she needed him most. He chose to measure her worth in pounds and dress sizes instead of character and loyalty. He chose to blame her for circumstances beyond her control. That absolutely was his choice. And look at you now, Brittany said, trying to recover. You're fine. Better than fine. So what are you complaining about? I'm not complaining, I said. I'm simply providing context. See, when Derek was telling his story about his lazy ex-wife who let herself go, he left out some pretty important details, like the car accident that broke my back, like the 18 months of physical therapy, like the depression diagnosis that followed. Everyone has problems, Derek muttered. You're right, I agreed. Everyone does. But not everyone responds to their spouse's problems by starting an affair with a coworker. The gasp that went through the crowd was audible. Brittany's face went scarlet. That's not... We didn't, Derek started. Please, I cut him off. You started dating 2 months after moving out. You expect people to believe that was coincidence? That you just happened to fall for someone in your office right after leaving me? What does it matter? Derek demanded, his voice rising. We're divorced. This is over. It matters, I said calmly. Because you're standing here at a company event, drinking company beer, surrounded by subordinates and colleagues, and you're speaking about your ex-wife like she's garbage. That reflects on your character, Derek. It reflects on your judgment. And it reflects on this company. I let that hang in the air for a moment, watching him process the implications. Around us, the crowd had grown larger. I could see people recording on their phones, could see the HR manager looking concerned from across the lawn. Marcus, I said, turning to my trainer. I think we should probably head out. I have that meeting tomorrow morning, and I need to prep. Sounds good, Marcus agreed, though his eyes never left Derek. This environment seems pretty toxic anyway. We started to walk away, and I heard Derek call out behind us. That's right. Run away. Same as always. I stopped, took a breath, and turned back around. I'm not running, Derek. I'm choosing not to engage with someone who isn't worth my energy. There's a difference. But before I go, I want to thank you. Thank me? He looked baffled. Yes, I said. Thank you for leaving me. Thank you for showing me exactly who you were when things got hard. Thank you for forcing me to rebuild my life without you. Because you know what I learned? I'm stronger without you than I ever was with you. I'm healthier without you. I'm happier without you. So thank you for doing me the biggest favor of my life. The look on his face was worth every moment of pain, every tear, every morning I'd woken up questioning my worth. You're delusional, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe, I replied. Or maybe I'm just finally seeing clearly. Either way, I'm done here. Enjoy your BBQ. Marcus and I walked away together, and I could feel every eye on us. Behind us, I heard the murmur of conversation restart. Could imagine the whispers that would follow Derek for the rest of the event. As we reached the parking lot, Marcus let out a low whistle. That was incredible, he said. You handled that perfectly. It felt good, I admitted, my hands shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. God, it felt really good. I bet. He paused by my car. You okay to drive? Yeah, I said. I'm good. More than good, actually. So, Marcus said carefully. About that meeting tomorrow morning. The one you need to prep for? I smiled, pulling my keys from my bag. That would be my interview with Harrison Industries' executive team, I said. for the position of Director of Wellness Programs. Marcus's jaw dropped. You're kidding. Nope, I replied, feeling a surge of satisfaction. I applied 3 months ago, made it through 3 rounds of interviews. Tomorrow is the final meeting with the C-suite. If I get it, I'll be responsible for implementing company-wide health and wellness initiatives. Which would make you Derek's colleague, I finished. Technically, I'd be in a different department, but we'd be at the same organizational level. We'd attend the same leadership meetings, work on the same projects. That's genius, Marcus said, laughing. Does he know? Not yet, I said. HR keeps the finalist pool confidential until offers are made, but he's about to find out. I don't suppose I could be there when he does. Actually, I said, opening my car door, the position includes hiring a head trainer for the new corporate fitness center they're building. If I get the job, you'd be my first call. Marcus's grin was luminous. Then I really hope you nail that interview. Me too, I agreed. Me too. I drove home with the windows down, letting the evening air wash over me. My phone was already buzzing with notifications. Apparently, someone had posted video of the confrontation on social media, and it was spreading fast. I ignored them. Tomorrow would be time enough to deal with the fallout. Tonight, I just wanted to savor the moment. The look on Derek's face, the satisfaction of standing my ground, the sweet promise of what was coming next. Because Derek had been right about one thing. I had changed. I'd become someone who didn't accept disrespect, someone who knew her worth, someone who wasn't afraid to fight for herself. And tomorrow, I was going to show Harrison Industries exactly what that person could do. The Harrison Industries headquarters gleamed in the morning sun, all glass and steel and corporate ambition. I'd been here twice before for interviews, but today felt different. Today, everything was on the line. My phone buzzed as I walked through the parking garage. A text from Marcus. Good luck today. You've got this. And check Twitter. You're trending. I paused, curiosity getting the better of me. Opening the app, I found myself staring at a video titled, Woman Confronts Ex-Husband Who Called Her Fat and Lazy, Plot Twist. It had over 2 million views and was climbing. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. She looks amazing! That man is trash. The way she handled herself, queen. Anyone know who she is? I want to hire her as my life coach. I closed the app, my heart racing. This was bigger than I'd anticipated, but there was no time to process it now. I had an interview to ace. The executive floor was quiet, the kind of hush that came from expensive carpeting and even more expensive artwork. Jennifer from HR greeted me with a warm smile that seemed slightly more enthusiastic than our previous meetings. Natalie, so good to see you again. Are you ready? Absolutely, I said, projecting confidence I was still building inside. Wonderful. Before we go in, I should mention we've added one more person to the panel. Derek Harrison from Operations. He'll be joining us since the wellness program will need to integrate with several departments, including his. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. Of course. Of course Derek would be there. That's fine, I said smoothly. The more perspectives, the better. Jennifer led me down the hallway to the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see them. 5 executives seated around an oval table. And there, at the far end, was Derek. His face went white when he saw me. Good morning, everyone, Jennifer said, opening the door. This is Natalie Chen, our final candidate for Director of Wellness Programs. I walked in, my heels clicking against the polished floor, and took my seat at the head of the table. Derek's eyes were fixed on me, his expression somewhere between shock and panic. "Good morning," I said, meeting each person's gaze in turn. When I reached Derek, I smiled pleasantly. "Hello, Derek. Nice to see you again." "You two know each other?" asked Patricia Wong, the CFO, looking between us with interest. "We were married," I said simply. "We've been divorced for 2 years." The room went silent. I watched Derek's face flush red. I didn't know," Jennifer stammered. "I'm so sorry. I should have—" "It's fine," I interrupted gently. "It's ancient history, and I'm a professional. I assume Derek is as well." I looked directly at him. "This won't be a problem, will it?" Derek cleared his throat, straightening in his chair. "Of course not. I'm here to evaluate the candidate on merit." "Excellent," said Richard Torres, the CEO, though he looked slightly uncomfortable. "Well then, shall we begin? Natalie, why don't you walk us through your vision for Harrison Industries' wellness program?" I took a breath and launched into the presentation I'd practiced dozens of times. But this time, it had an edge, a personal stake that made every word sharper, more meaningful. "Wellness isn't just about gym memberships and healthy snacks in the break room," I began. "It's about creating a culture where employees feel valued, supported, and empowered to be their best selves, both physically and mentally. It's about recognizing that people face challenges, setbacks, and obstacles, and providing them with the tools and support to overcome those challenges rather than being judged for them." I could feel Derek shifting in his seat. "I've reviewed Harrison Industries' current offerings, and while they're good, they're surface level. You have a gym membership reimbursement program that less than 15% of employees use. You have quarterly health screenings that focus solely on metrics like weight and blood pressure without addressing the underlying factors that contribute to those numbers. You have a wellness newsletter that 90% of employees delete without reading." Patricia leaned forward. "So what would you do differently?" "Everything," I said. "I'd start by conducting a comprehensive needs assessment, surveying employees about what they actually want and need, not what we think they should want. I'd implement tiered programming that meets people where they are. Someone recovering from an injury needs different support than someone training for a marathon. Someone dealing with chronic pain needs different resources than someone managing stress." I pulled up my presentation on the screen, showing detailed plans, budget projections, and timeline proposals. I'd spent 3 months developing this, working late into the night, channeling every ounce of my personal experience into a program that could genuinely change lives. I'd also implement a zero-tolerance policy for wellness-related discrimination or mockery. I continued, my voice steady. Employees should never feel judged or belittled for their health status, their fitness level, or their appearance. That kind of toxic culture doesn't just harm individuals. It damages team cohesion, productivity, and ultimately, the company's bottom line. Derek's jaw tightened. I could see him processing, realizing where this was going. "That seems ambitious," said James Mitchell, the COO. "How would you enforce something like that?" "The same way we enforce any other workplace behavior policy," I replied. "Clear guidelines, mandatory training for all employees, especially leadership, and consequences for violations. If someone creates a hostile work environment by mocking a colleague's weight, fitness level, or health status, they face disciplinary action, just like they would for any other form of harassment." "Even at company events?" Derek interjected, his voice tight. "Like, say, a casual BBQ?" I met his eyes. Especially at company events. Those are still work functions, and employees are still representing the company. If anything, leadership should be held to an even higher standard at those events, since their behavior sets the tone for the entire organization. The silence in the room was deafening. Patricia and Richard exchanged glances. "Is there something we should know about?" Patricia asked carefully. "Actually," Jennifer spoke up, her phone in her hand, "I think there might be. I'm seeing something on social media. A video from yesterday's company BBQ." She looked up, her expression troubled. "Derek, is this you?" I watched as she turned her phone toward him. Even from across the table, I could hear the audio of his voice saying those words. She got fat and lazy. Spent 8 years watching her deteriorate. Derek's face went from red to pale. That was taken out of context. Was it? I asked quietly. Because I was there, Derek. I heard the whole conversation. Would you like me to provide context? This is highly inappropriate, Derek said, standing abruptly. She's using this interview to settle personal scores. Sit down, Derek, Richard said, his voice hard. I want to hear this. Derek sat, his hands clenched into fists on the table. Yesterday, I began, keeping my voice professional. I attended the company BBQ as a guest. While there, I overheard Derek and several colleagues discussing his ex-wife, me, in derogatory terms. He referred to me as fat and lazy, mocked my appearance, and complained about having to pay alimony. He did this loudly, in front of subordinates and colleagues, while drinking company-provided alcohol at a company event. I was having a private conversation, Derek protested. In the middle of a corporate event with 200 people present, I countered. That's not private, Derek. That's public humiliation. And it's exactly the kind of toxic behavior that drives good employees away and exposes companies to liability. What Derek left out of his story, I continued, turning back to the executives, is that the weight gain he was mocking was the result of a severe car accident. I spent months in physical therapy learning to walk again. I was diagnosed with clinical depression following the accident and my husband's decision to leave me during my recovery. The laziness he described was actually disability. Patricia's expression had gone from interested to appalled. Derek, is this true? It's not. She's making it sound worse than it was. So you didn't leave your wife while she was recovering from a car accident? Richard asked, his voice icy. Derek faltered. We had other problems. The accident it highlighted existing issues. Issues like her temporary disability? I asked. Issues like her not being able to maintain the appearance standards you apparently required? This isn't relevant to the interview, Derek said desperately. On the contrary, Richard said, I think it's extremely relevant. We're interviewing candidates for a position that will shape our company culture around health, wellness, and employee support. Ms. Chen's personal experience gives her unique insight into the challenges employees face and the kind of toxic behaviors that undermine workplace wellness. He turned to me. I apologize, Natalie. This shouldn't have happened. Derek should have recused himself from this interview. Actually, I said, I'm glad he's here, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Derek's behavior yesterday wasn't an isolated incident. It's indicative of a broader culture problem, one where leadership feels comfortable mocking employees, where appearance is valued over competence, where people are judged for circumstances beyond their control. I stood, moving to the screen to pull up another slide. If I'm hired, this is what I want to implement. A comprehensive culture shift. mandatory sensitivity training for all employees with special focus on leadership, anonymous reporting systems for wellness-related harassment, support groups for employees dealing with injuries, chronic illness, or mental health challenges, partnerships with physical therapists, nutritionists, and mental health professionals, and most importantly, accountability. If someone in leadership violates these policies, they face consequences. Real consequences. The video from yesterday, Jennifer said, still looking at her phone, has over 2 million views. People are sharing it across platforms. Some are calling for Derek's termination. That's excessive, Derek said quickly. I was off the clock. You were at a company event representing Harrison Industries, Patricia interrupted. And according to this video, you weren't the only one making inappropriate comments. Robert Chen from accounting, Michael Stevens from marketing, they're all visible here. This is a witch hunt, Derek protested. No, Richard said firmly. This is a reckoning. We've been trying to build a more inclusive, supportive culture here, and apparently we've failed. If our own executives feel comfortable mocking disabilities and appearance at company events, what kind of message does that send? He looked at me. Natalie, I want to be clear. If we offer you this position, do you think you can work here, given your history with Derek? I considered the question carefully. Yes, but only if the company is serious about change. If you hire me and then let Derek and his colleagues continue business as usual, I'll fail. The program will fail. But if you're genuinely committed to creating a better culture, then yes, I can work here. I can work with anyone who's willing to be professional and respectful. Derek? Richard turned to him. Can you commit to that? Derek looked cornered. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out the path that would save his career. I can be professional, he said finally. But I think having her here would be complicated. Complicated how? Patricia asked. People will talk. They'll say she only got hired because of the video, because the company was trying to avoid bad PR. Let them talk, I said. I've spent 2 years rebuilding my life while people talked. I've spent 2 years being judged, questioned, and underestimated. I'm used to it. The question is whether Harrison Industries is ready to stand behind its commitment to wellness and inclusion, even when it's uncomfortable. Richard stood, followed by the other executives. Thank you, Natalie. We'll be in touch soon. Jennifer, could you escort Ms. Chen out? Derek, Patricia, James, please stay. We need to discuss some things. I gathered my materials, shook hands with each executive, and followed Jennifer out. As the door closed behind us, I caught a glimpse of Derek's face, pale, worried, trapped. That was intense, Jennifer said as we walked to the elevator. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It needed to happen, I replied. If not now, then eventually. Better to address it head on. For what it's worth, she said, pressing the elevator button. I think you'd be incredible in this role. Your presentation was the best we've seen, and your personal perspective is invaluable. I'll be advocating for you. Thank you, I said sincerely. My phone rang as I reached my car. Marcus. How'd it go? He asked. Honestly, I have no idea. Derek was on the interview panel. You're kidding. Nope. We had a whole confrontation in front of the executives. The video came up. It was dramatic. So either you got the job or you're never hearing from them again. Pretty much, I agreed, starting the car. Want to grab lunch? I need to decompress. Already on my way to our usual spot. 3 days later, I was in the middle of a training session with one of my clients when my phone rang. Harrison Industries. I need to take this, I told my client, stepping outside. Ms. Chen, this is Richard Torres. My heart hammered. Hello, Mr. Torres. I'll cut to the chase. We'd like to offer you the position of Director of Wellness Programs. The salary is $185,000 plus benefits, with a $25,000 annual budget for continuing education and professional development. You'd start in 3 weeks. I had to sit down. Thank you. I accept. Excellent. Jennifer will send over the formal offer and paperwork. I should also tell you, we've implemented some immediate changes. Derek Harrison has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation into workplace conduct. Several other employees have also been suspended. We're bringing in an external consultant to review our culture and policies. That's significant, I said carefully. It's necessary, Richard replied. Your interview opened our eyes to some serious issues. We can't claim to value wellness and inclusion while tolerating the kind of behavior that was on display at that BBQ. This is bigger than one video. It's about who we are as a company. I appreciate that, Mr. Torres. Truly. Call me Richard. We're going to be working together closely. Oh, and one more thing. That budget for hiring a head trainer for our new fitness center, consider it approved. If you know someone good, bring them in. I smiled. I know exactly who to call. 2 months later, I stood in the gleaming new Harrison Industries Wellness Center, watching as employees filtered in for the grand opening. The space was beautiful. State-of-the-art equipment, natural lighting, separate areas for yoga, physical therapy, and meditation. But more importantly, it felt welcoming, accessible, designed for real people with real challenges, not just fitness enthusiasts. Marcus was giving tours, his enthusiasm infectious. We'd hired 3 additional trainers, 2 physical therapists, a nutritionist, and a mental health counselor. The response had been overwhelming. Over 60% of employees had already signed up for programs. Impressive turnout, a voice said beside me. I turned to find Patricia Wong, smiling with what looked like genuine warmth. Thank you, I said. I think people were hungry for this kind of support. You were right about the culture issues, she admitted. The external review was eye-opening. We had more problems than we realized. And Derek? I asked, though I'd heard rumors. He resigned 2 weeks ago. The investigation found multiple incidents of inappropriate conduct, not just at the BBQ. Apparently, he had a pattern of commenting on employees' appearances, making jokes about weight, that sort of thing. He was offered the choice to resign or be terminated. He chose resignation. I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also something like sadness. The man I'd married hadn't been cruel. Somewhere along the way, he'd become someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe he'd always been that person, and I'd just been too young, too trusting to see it. How do you feel about that? Patricia asked, watching my face. Honestly, relieved. Not because I wanted him to lose his job. I didn't come here for revenge, but because it sends a message that this behavior isn't acceptable, that there are consequences. Well, thanks to you, we're building something better. The new policies you helped develop are already making a difference. Employee satisfaction scores are up 15%. Retention is improving, and we've had several prospective employees specifically cite our wellness program as a reason they want to work here. As Patricia walked away to greet other attendees, I felt Marcus's hand on my shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. "You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have gotten here without your support. Please. You're the one who turned your pain into purpose, who took everything Derek said about you and used it as fuel, who showed up to that BBQ not to get revenge, but to show him and yourself how strong you'd become." "It wasn't all about him," I said. "Somewhere along the way, it stopped being about proving Derek wrong and started being about proving myself right. About showing myself that I could build something meaningful from the worst experience of my life." "And look what you built." Marcus gestured around the center. "This is going to change lives, Nat. People who are struggling, who feel alone, who think their company doesn't care about them, they're going to find support here, because you refuse to let your story end with Derek's version." I looked around the room, seeing employees laughing, trying equipment, signing up for classes. I saw the physical therapy area where someone was working with a trainer on post-surgical rehabilitation. I saw the quiet meditation room where a woman sat with her eyes closed, finally finding a moment of peace in her workday. I saw the nutrition counseling office where someone was getting help managing their diabetes. This was why I'd fought so hard. Not to hurt Derek, but to help people like me. People who'd been judged, dismissed, told they weren't trying hard enough or caring enough or being enough. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I saw the video. I saw what you built. I was wrong about you. About everything. I'm sorry." It was Derek. I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Some people deserved forgiveness. Some people earned reconciliation. Derek might get there someday, but it wouldn't be from me. I didn't need his apology or his acknowledgement. I didn't need him to validate my worth or my journey. I'd already done that myself. "You okay?" Marcus asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah," I said, slipping my phone back into my pocket. "I'm better than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The grand opening continued around us, full of energy and hope and possibility. Somewhere in that crowd was probably someone struggling with the same pain I'd felt, the judgment, the isolation, the feeling of being broken. But now they had a place where they wouldn't face it alone. And if my story, messy and painful and imperfect as it was, could help even one person feel less alone, then every moment of struggle had been worth it. Derek had been right about one thing in the end. I had changed. But not in the way he'd meant. Not in the way he'd feared. I'd changed into someone stronger. Someone kinder. Someone who understood that true wellness wasn't about fitting into someone else's definition of acceptable. It was about supporting people through their struggles, celebrating their victories, and recognizing that everyone's journey looked different. As I watched Marcus demonstrate proper form on the rowing machine to a group of eager employees, as I saw people connecting and laughing and supporting each other, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because I'd gotten revenge on Derek, not because I'd proven him wrong, but because I'd proven myself right. I was stronger than my worst day. I was more than my biggest struggle. I was capable of taking pain and transforming it into purpose. And that was the best revenge of all. Living well, building something meaningful, and refusing to let anyone else's judgment define my worth. The wellness center hummed with life around me, full of possibility and promise. This was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. There always were. But I was ready for them, because I'd already survived the worst. Everything else was just the victory lap. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.